analyze the effectiveness of the US and European peace proposals or the European counter-peace proposal for Ukraine. We have with us Prabhu Dayal, former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, for being with us. So, are these proposals workable when they, to reconcile Ukraine's sovereignty and security demands? Because we look at it, Russia, consistently insists that no NATO expansion can take place. Can this work long term?
Well, Mark, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Let me begin by saying that the chances of success of Trump's original plan were minimal due to its alignment with key Russian demands. But I think that the ongoing diplomatic efforts to create a revised, mutually acceptable framework present a narrow but challenging path towards a potential peace settlement. Now, Russia had cautiously welcomed the initial proposal, but according to sources, it has not officially received the refined or the updated version. So it remains unclear if the Kremlin will agree to the modifications which are necessary to get Ukraine and Europe on board.
Right.
And the current talks highlight the ongoing diplomatic gap between the involved parties. However, let me say that the recent talks between the US and Ukraine in Geneva are significant because they have led to an updated version of the original Trump peace plan. And it has thus addressed Ukrainian and European concerns that the first draft heavily favored Russia. Now, these talks in Geneva highlighted a major diplomatic push by the US to end the war, while Ukraine sought to ensure that its core interests are duly taken care of in any potential agreement. Now, the chances of success for Trump's original Ukraine-Russia peace plan appeared very low due to major opposition from Ukraine and its key European allies. There were four major obstacles. First, the territorial concessions that Ukraine was being asked to make. Now, that plan required Ukraine to cede control of Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk, and freeze the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia. Now, this was seen as rewarding Russian aggression and violating Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. So Ukrainian and European leaders firmly stated that they will not recognize.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, if we could go a little deeper into some of the let's look at analyze it a little bit. Is Ukraine really in a position to deter future Russian aggression? Will Europe be in a position to prevent that threat on its own? I mean, these are the kind of questions that are that could lead to an ultimate peace.
Ukraine is not in a position to confront Russia on its own. And that is why it was seeking security guarantees by becoming a member of NATO. It wanted to have that security umbrella in case of any Russian attack. And that is why the Russians were opposed to Ukraine joining NATO. Now, what President Trump suggested in his original peace plan was that Ukraine should agree not to apply for NATO membership. And in fact, NATO should put down in its statutes that it will not allow Ukraine to become a member. Now, this was unacceptable both to NATO and to Ukraine. Of course, in the original plan, President Trump said that he would offer security guarantees to Ukraine. But these security guarantees were very vague and unclear and unconvincing. And that is why the Ukrainians put their neck out and said that, no, we are not going to accept this. Defying the Americans for the Ukrainians was something very tough. because
Right.
of the fact that they depend on the United States for a considerable amount of military and financial aid.
Right, and Europe
Nonetheless,
as well. So they depend on Europe as well. But Europe is not going to accept, Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, Zaporizhia as part of Russian territory. So does this give Russia, reason to continue attacks to press home what they seem to think is a military advantage at this point in time? I mean, these are the issues that are lying underneath. The underlying reasons of discord that are unlikely to see a peace deal being made.
well, Russia has continued to attack Ukraine in spite of the fact that it had shown agreement, more or less, willingness to go along with Trump's original peace plan, because that peace plan took care of Russian interests. But significantly, as you yourself were indicating, the Russians continued to carry out these military strikes in Ukraine. Now, what is going to be the future of the Russian position? I think that the Russians are not going to be willing to accept any sort of peace plan put forward by the Americans, which does not suit their own interest.
Right.
So, while this entire business of making peace proposals and a peace plan is certainly to be praised, but it faces very serious challenges because of the huge differences which are there between the Russians on one side and Ukraine backed by its European
Right.
allies. The other.
Ambassador Dayal, we are running short of time, so let me just squeeze in one more last question. Even if any of these proposals are workable that are put on the table, who's going to monitor compliance? I mean, will it have to be the US and NATO who will have to do that? And will that lead us back to square one? Because that's what the Russians don't even want from day one.
The question of monitoring the agreement will come after the initial aspects of the agreement are agreed to. I'm sure that the Ukrainians definitely have it at the back of their mind that if they agree, there should be some sort of monitoring mechanism. But the first stage has to be crossed first, which is to get both parties to agree to the peace plan which the Americans are putting forward.
Indeed. We'd have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Thank you for unpacking that, putting it into context for us. Now,